We are live.
Good evening and welcome to the March 5th, 2025 meeting of the Wareham Finance Committee. We are in room 27 of Wareham Town Hall. We're also available by Zoom, and I believe at least one member is trying to sign in right now. But I will call the roll for the people who are present here so far. Jerry Stefanski, Jody Smith, Alan Slavin, Heidi Churchill, myself, Norma Scoggin. There are 5 of us, which is a quorum, and so we can begin. And I believe that at least Andrea Picarelli will be joining us remotely through the link. All right, pass these things out for a little bit later. And we'll start with the agenda items. And I believe, can you let Andrea in, please? And Andrea Picarelli has now joined us as well. All right. We have, first item on the agenda is approval of some minutes. We have January 8th and January 13th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? No. All right. I will call the roll since we have one person remotely for a roll call vote. Jerry?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Heidi? And Andrea?
Yes.
And I also vote yes, so it passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda, you have a copy of an invoice from Kelly Barrasso, our minute taker, and it's for $68.75. I have approved that under the authority that you have already given me and submitted it to the town accountant. So I'm just reporting back to you. There's no motion needed. Just reporting back to you that that is a payment that has been made out of our budget. Next item, we have a couple of Association of Town Finance Committee invoices. This was for the November meeting that Andrea and Jody attended. $65 each registration for that. And I would entertain a motion to pay both of those invoices.
Motion so approved.
Second.
All right. And I will, is there any discussion on that? All right, I will call the roll for this.
Yes.
Jerry, Jody,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
Andrea,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So that passes 6-0. Okay, which takes us to the really important business of the evening. We have with us the town administrator, Derek Sullivan, and I've asked him to do a couple of things for us tonight. The first is to update us on basically the first half of the fiscal year, sort of where we stand as we go into this budget season. And if you could just give us a quick rundown on that. We have received information in the past that has been passed on to you. But
Thank you. Yes, just going through it, we'd sent out the information, which is sort of the half-year mark. I think revenues were back from November, but the December expenditures, there was really nothing alarming. So when we were going through them, obviously at that point, your goal is to have expended 50% or less personnel, which is salary-wise. Some of them would be over. Like we pay our pension contribution to Plymouth County in the beginning, so that's used to be on in the first report you do in August or something. You're in a panic. Why is pension over? Already expended, but those are the types of things that you're usually paying ahead, including general liability insurance, workers' comp, any of those. So far, what we're looking at next year is a 52.2 week. So you'll see that our expenditures, our salaries will be a little higher than normal too. But everybody's pretty much right on board. Division of Natural Resources was slightly over the 50% mark, but that's usually typically because you have July and August. Some of September for the really big months, especially if they're seasonal personnel, and then June isn't as big as a month, so we usually see them expend it. But we're just going to double check and make sure that they're not going over. We did lose one staff member in that department, so that's why I'm feeling that we should be okay for the rest of the year and not need any transfers. So again, with everything's pretty much right on board. I know there was a question about the school. If you remember, the school, when we budget them, doesn't get broken down by personnel or expenses. So this report doesn't really reflect what their budget is, so they're not in deficit at this point.
Do you know what the one item, Derek, was that they were almost $1,000 over? It looked as if they were moving money somewhere and running it through one account.
No, it was when you, see, I only see the personnel and expenses, and that's the accounting department separated them out, but we don't do that when we budget it. So I just think it was one of their own internal things. So I didn't see it as a as an
Didn't see
issue.
any explanation, that's why I was asking. It was,
Yeah,
it was
so
way out of whack.
yeah, no, it was about it looked like it was 920% expended, but it's
Exactly,
but it is not.
thank you.
So just going through all of them, yeah, there wasn't too much. Streetlights, I looked at them again, snow and ice although we've had some, we're still within line. Dave said he didn't see any issues, so we're probably not gonna request a holdback from at town meeting for it, from the free cash, doing disbursements from there. God willing, we're out of the season, feeling some warm weather.
Never say never.
Yeah,
Yes, right.
yeah. Yeah, we've had May storms, we've had
Yeah,
It happens.
April,
so right now, what we're trying to figure out is we try and forecast so we can schedule the street sweepers besides our own, so some of the privates that we use. But you obviously want to get them after you've done all your salting and sanding as well, so.
The natural resource person, you're gonna replace July,
Yeah, we're going to see.
or try to, whatever.
Right, we're not deleting the position.
I mean, no reason to now, like I said, winter per
Yeah.
se.
We're also looking, because natural resources officers do go to the academy. They're academy trained, so when we're bringing them in, it's a substantial cost to us if they're not already academy trained, and a lot of them at that position, they're not coming in with the academy.
Do they go to the academy down in East Falmouth?
I don't know.
I mean,
I know where you're going with this.
well, I'm just saying, if you're looking to get somebody in there, they've let everybody go, it sounds like.
They moved them, they moved
They
them.
moved them,
Well,
whatever.
they got rid, well. they-
Whatever,
so
I
it's
just-
police academy.
Yes.
Yeah, they actually
Okay.
go to the police
Yeah.
academy,
Okay.
so. Yeah, it's they're not as people like to call them clam cops, they're truly police officers, yeah, they've got the real powers.
And that's the problem with seasonal police officers, they have to go through the academy now, that's why people don't understand why they're not out there anymore.
That's why we've lost a lot of the seasonal, we put what we
Well,
used to spend on there, got at least one officer. When we used to spend the 50-60 grand on them, so we converted that into an officer, but yeah, they were a big help just having eyes and ears around, especially in the summer season, so.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Derek, I don't know about up here, but down in East Wareham and Howley, January and February, really cold. Do you see like an increase in the heating and utilities for those 2 months here?
When you this building, what happens is with the heat and AC system, we have the heat pumps. When it gets super cold like that, and that's the actual technical term, super cold, we will turn on the gas boilers, so you'll get an extra $2,000 to $3,000 hit on those sometimes. For like a building like this, because what we do is then we run the radiators through here to supplement, because once they go down, but you also want to get some heat in the halls and other things to just keep the envelope, the interior of the building heated,
Yeah.
so.
Now, on Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays, what's the temperature differential between the 4 work days and the 3? Well, I mean, what do you set the temperature at? Four work days and off days?
Yeah, they don't turn them all the way off. They can actually central set all of these. They bring them down a little bit, but with the heat pump system, they want you to keep it pretty steady. They believe that's the most efficient way of keeping it, but we don't. So in other words, we don't turn it down to 50 on Thursday night and then crank it up to 70 on Monday.
It's too much playing catch up.
Yeah, it puts a lot of pressure on the system too, so probably to keep it, I know that I'm always shutting mine down to about 65 or so, and then, that's when I come in, maybe it's at 68 or something, you'll put it up to. And if it hits 70, I'm in trouble. That means something's on fire.
Other questions, comments? Right. Andrea, did you have any questions or comments on this? Okay. I will say, you know, we're in the middle of the financial management review right now, and I think one of the suggestions they're gonna make in their report, based on my conversation with them, is that they may suggest a joint quarterly meeting with the select board to basically have this kind of a report, which I can see the value in that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a sort of 90-day review, but my only problem is when you're having it's not, once you're done with the quarter, you usually don't close out that books for 30 or 60 days,
Right.
depending on whether it's expense or revenue, so,
There's always gonna be a lag.
yeah,
for sure.
so.
We've done that before and it's never worked out because you've not been able to get the numbers in a timely fashion because they weren't available.
Yeah,
Well, I
so-
mean, we could schedule the quarterly review for whatever time out we
Right,
needed, right?
Yeah, you know.
It would still be of some use, I think.
And I think that's a good idea. The only thing I'd like to add is, and I wouldn't want to see the whole school committee, but maybe the business officer from the school is kind of giving us, I watch all their meetings, so I see all the transfers and all that stuff, but I think other people might have questions.
I think actually that may be a part of it too, is to add in the school committee as part of the joint meeting.
Or at least a business manager.
So,
And then we had the revenues
Yes.
portion, you know, so we're gonna find on those, you know, we had some of the tax title and revenue, which was already exceeding 24, but that was because of actual, you know, those will fluctuate, we don't really budget those. Again, the canvas fees, the impact fees, that's why it's way down, those are going away. So we're about an $80,000 difference from FY '24 to the same period FY '25, but we've anticipated that, and motor vehicle excise we should do well in again. Just looking at it because the collections, when you see the 461,000, those are collections in this fiscal year from prior billings that people are just starting to pay because we don't send our bills out until February. So and I actually I had personally I got the demand notice from where I live because I picked up an old used car. And it must have been an interim mailing, and I know I got it. I can't claim to them and say I never got that bill, and I missed the $17 payment on it, so I owed $5 on top of it. So I said, you know, no, I will admit to it.
It happens.
But yeah, just going through it, and there's nothing alarm for this year, but we know. You know, when we're getting into FY '26, this is and beyond, we know that we need to really be cautious and a little worried about what's happening. So, just maybe a segue.
All right. With that, let's move on to your introduction of our FY '26 budget.
Forever. Thinking about buying a new one. Yeah, they have the colored printers now. I hate buying those cartridges. Now with the tanks, you can just refill the tanks. I end up switching over to one of them. And I hate to give up the one I have. It works fine, but it sucks a lot of cartridges. Yes, I got one that get the automatic feeder. It flips two-sided and does faxes, does everything.
Well, that's loading. So we're two things. One, you do have a handout. This was emailed out to beforehand. This is the traditional budget format. No, it's not in color. I cheaped out on you for the.
Some of us printed
Yeah.
out our own color copies.
It's a typical format. This is basically what gets presented. You have the FY24 actual, the FY25 budgeted update, and the FY26 proposed. So in going through here, if we can go to the next slide, please. This is your typical pie chart. Yeah, so going through here. So when you look at it, and this is going link up to what we're looking at the beginning of the budget document, the FY26 levy limit. So that is the $50 million, 50 plus million. It's about 60% of our revenue budget. Then you have 2.5 authorized. That's what always confuses people. The 2.5% isn't your personal tax bill. It is an increase to the levy limit. So that's $1,269,208. So when you look at that, that's your new growth is actually the 1% of our budget. That's what that new revenue is worth when it comes down to about 1% is the 2.5% increase. New growth is about 550,000. This is obviously we're not going out on decimal places, so one would probably be under 1%, one would be slightly over. The school debt exclusion is roughly 2% of the budget. That's for the new elementary school that we're paying, so for about probably 16, 17 years left. So all told, our taxes bring in about 64% of our budget. And it hovers around 63, 64% because our next biggest is the state aid. So we get state aid from the Chapter 70 and charter school reimbursement. So that's roughly the 20%, and then state aid general government. So that's what we receive for just unrestricted general government aid, which this year is probably slightly less than 2%, but we'll get into that a little bit more.
Recording in progress.
So last year, state aid made up 25% of our budget. You'll see later on it has declined for us to 24%. Local receipts are our next biggest, which are 11%. And then enterprise fund, indirect, direct. So that's all the two things, right? That's all the work that the departments do on behalf of the sewer department. So like the treasurer collector, the assessor, my office, then all the things we pay on behalf, like the benefits for the employees, that's actually in the town's budget, not in the enterprise fund budget. The workers' comp insurance, general liability, all those things. So, and then available funds are just, so for example, we'll go through it, that's our community preservation, we're pulling some money out because there's some debt being paid, so we're just pulling it right through there. Waterways and others, so that's really what makes up of it, that's sort of the pie chart of this page. If you go to the next slide, please. So again, this is sort of the more of the breakdown of it. When you see the 2.5%, yes, you're getting about about 1.27 million, but it's only $39,000 increase, as it's multiplying. So that's a slight compounding there. New growth at 550,000. I worked with the director of assessing on that. We've had new growth in the last 10 years, went down into, it's been in the 300-400s. Why we've seen bigger ones in there it was almost, I think in 24 it was 890,000. Those are some of the big projects coming in, like the 40Bs or other such things. And in the past, the solar projects were some of the big driver of some of the new growth. But
Does that also include newly constructed single-family homes?
Correct, yeah. So Bay Point's an example of one, a bunch of the condos picking those up. If you look on Main Street, the development, those condos, they're picked up about 40% right now. So you'll pick them up in different phases. So you'll see our tax revenue is a little over 1.8 million. This is where things start going a little bit off the rails for this fiscal year is when we start getting into state aid. Our
Or-
chapter.
Excuse me, are we muted on Zoom right now? I'm seeing a little flashing muted sign.
No, I can hear you, although
Okay.
I will say it got very choppy and froze several times, stopped recording and then rebooted itself.
Right,
Okay, so that was probably that whole.
okay. Thank you.
There we go, thank you. So the formula right now that the state is using for school aid, which is chapter 70, is $75 per pupil. Our school population has gone down a little bit, we're now at $2,200. So 2,200 pupils. 2,200 times the 75 brings you the 166,500. It's not a very big state aid increase number for the schools. And then conversely, we're also losing charter schools, some of the aid. Now, part of that's because we probably didn't have as many new kids going in because the charter school assessment didn't rise as much as it has been. So we probably have some saturation there. But what we actually have is a little over $80,000 of negative state aid increase. So
I understand that $75 per student, but the schools, I mean, I listened to one of the recent meetings, I mean, they get 25 new kids into the middle school during the year. The elementary school said they're about the same number, and the high school didn't have a number. Is that being figured into this budget
these are the DESI numbers as of October.
as of October?
Yeah, so DESI
they've-
sets their October numbers.
So will they adjust it for new pupils that are gonna be here next year?
Yeah, no,
Nec-
I
Not
don't
until
believe-
next October.
Right, yeah,
Till
so,
next October,
right, so, right now, DESI has us as going down, I think, 32 kids or something. Our overall population going down.
Yeah, cause that's a little, and that's not with all the new coming into like Woodland Cove, and that's where they thought most of the kids were coming from, but it was a substantial number.
Yeah,
In my mind, it was.
so, yeah, if the kids have been I don't know when they were saying they were enrolled, but that's the enrollment as of October, and that's where they set it.
They went there to adjust.
No, not the, it's, we've been hurt on the other end too, where, you know, they've said we've got extra kids at Upper Cape Cod Tech or something, and like, I'd love you to show them, but they will not adjust the formula, so. You know, but so we're at negative 80,000. Unrestricted general government aid, you know, I think they were like 1.76% increase or something like that, under 2%. So they usually base it on what they believe their new revenue is going to be, new revenue growth for the Commonwealth overall. And then veterans benefits, really large increase. That was part of the governor's budget, including then more revenue for the exemptions, veterans, blind, surviving spouses and such.
The veterans benefit, that's not the reimbursement to 75%, is that? Or was it,
75% is the veterans benefits.
that's what that money is
Yeah,
there?
so we get 75%, and that's why it almost looks like they've been increasing the formula to 100% is what that looks like to me.
Okay,
Right,
'cause
'cause
that-
that's,
One of the things I got marked down, cause I was curious if there's a new veteran aid that's doing more outreach, that he's servicing a lot more veterans, but the number's about the same. Okay.
no, yeah, that's, so.
State's being a little nicer.
Yeah, we'll see where it lasts, you know. It's a state-owned land, that's state land within the town they give you. It's not truly a payment in lieu of taxes, cause it's not the same, but you get something for it. So that brings us up to our general government aid is just under $230,000. So after the other one, we're just under 150,000 in new state aid. So for as we sort of said before, an $80+ million budget, that's a rounding error. So
And it's offset by the lower school aid.
yes, so and then later on we'll get into the assessments, which also hurt that number. So if you go next slide, please. So what it does just, I wanted to go through and just give a little more backup into what you see over the years. These are the actual collections for new growth. So we hover around the $400,000 to $500,000 range. Again, FY '24 was a major one. There could be a couple big projects coming into town, which would boost that up again, but we feel confident at the 550, and I would not go any higher than that. So if we go to next slide, please. Net state aid, this is the big one. Again, if you look 2012, we had 12.4 million, which then went up to 12.6, a period of decline, and then they finally brought us back up into the 13.7, and now we've been declining every year since. So after large increases in FY '24, we're actually only plus 800,000 after 14 years.
Which with
And-
inflation is not a negative, right?
If I wanted to, I could have just chopped off 2012 and tell you it's 600,000 after 13 years when it comes down to it. So aid has not helped us out over the years. So if we go next slide, please. Local receipts, so this just wanted to give some information. Local receipts are locally generated revenues other than real estate and personal property taxes. Examples are motor vehicle excise, local meals, permit fees, investment income. That's been the big one that's bolstered us over the last few years. And but it's considered the most unpredictable revenue. It's based on the economic environment can shift it drastically, and we're experiencing some economic shifts now. So this has me concerned. But since it's unpredictable, the Commonwealth Division of Local Services recommends that you never budget more than 90% of the prior fiscal year actual collections. We budget mid-year, so we don't have a full year of collections. So what we're looking at is basically FY '24's true collections. Now, there's a good and a bad to this, right? By doing it that way, we're conservative. We've been doing well where our revenues have been greater than our estimates, results in free cash. That's good. That's how we fund our stabilization fund, OPEB, and how we fund our capital. Outside of the police cruisers in the budget, those that were released and we purchased them separately, we are fully fund pay-as-you-go capital. So next item, please. Next slide. So motor vehicle excise has been trending positively since the COVID-19 era. About FY '23, '24 is 3.45% increase. So if you look at FY '23, we're at 3.55 million. So for '25, we budgeted about 3.2, right? Right around the 90% range. Same thing, FY '24, we were just under 3.7, which is worth 3.310. So it's a positive trend line. So that one's going well. But again, that can change. It's going to be interesting. These tariffs could drive up the new car purchases out the window, and people will be holding on to their cars. If you've ever gotten your excise bill, they do go drastically lower from year to year to year. So the key to this is to have new vehicles coming into the community. That's why if you ever get a big distribution center, it's not necessarily the best, but if they have their own vehicles and they register them in your town, that is a big boon for the town.
Say, Derek, on vehicle excise, who's setting the value of the car?
The Commonwealth sets the value. So, yeah, that was it was strange because that's the 1988 vehicle I picked up was actually, I looked at it, was valued higher than my mother's 2001 Beetle. So I can't figure
It's
that out.
because it goes down for 5 years or 6 years, and I forget what it is, and whatever the value is on that last year, that's what it stays forever.
Yeah.
So if you had one car that depreciated faster than the other one, according to the state, then you're stuck with that higher rate forever.
Yeah, that's why I found it ironic with that.
Yeah. Had
Thank
that
you.
happen.
Next slide, please. So local meals, collections have rebounded from COVID-19 decline. We had a large increase from 23 to 24. I was trying to figure out if there was anything associated to what came online or anything. We know that Lindsay's had gone away for a little bit. Town Tavern came in. I don't know if that'd be enough, but we're looking at pretty big jumps for. So our FY26 we're budgeting 690,000, which is about a $60,000 increase. Next slide, please. All right, this is a weird one. Looks like a bell curve. It is not meant like that. So this is the local rooms occupancy, hotel, motel. In 22 and 23, when the short-term rental, so the Airbnb tax came in, they popped it into local rooms occupancy, and now they've started separating them. So, just try to look at it, the different ways. The 320, I think we should be good on that one based off of the 356 because I took out the short-term rental, what our estimates were, and we're a little bit lower in the short term. So it's a give and a take on it. So we're looking at probably some neutral growth when it comes down to it. So if we go next slide, this is where you see we actually had 281,000 in collections for the short-term rental in FY24. So we're using 255,000 on that. And I'll look. I probably should have just shut off the chart at 23. I hate the blank, but.
But you would add that 255 to the 320 on the prior page to compare.
And that's where so we're doing it's okay on there. Probably not as conservative as we have been because we're trying to offset some of the loss of state aid. So this buffer from from local receipts is kind of a 1 year Band-Aid, if you will. If you go to next slide. Boat excise, it's ironically it's like a wave. When you look at it. So there's a crest at trough, depending on the billing date. So conservatively, 45,000. It's a good estimate. Obviously, this isn't one of our huge revenues. So next, please. Cannabis. This is what we said. When cannabis came in, we had the 4th retail operation in the Commonwealth. We were shipping people in. Was watching all the cars from the Cape, all the rental vehicles coming. It was a wonderful time. But the market's become more saturated, obviously, across. It didn't just drive sales down, it drove the prices down. Prices went really, really low. And then the Cannabis Control Commission also removed the impact fees. So the revenue is continuing a negative decline. We've never budgeted over 150,000, but looks like we're hitting the floor right around our revenues. That our disbursement for the December disbursement for cannabis was much better than the previous fiscal year, so I'm okay with this number. Next, please. Fees are trailer coach fees. So the land that mobile homes are on pay a real estate tax, but you don't pay a real estate tax bill for the mobile home itself. They pay what's called trailer coach fees. And so there's also district assessments. We do the collections of the tax bills for Wareham and Onset, and they pay us a portion from their levy. Municipal lien certificates, if you've ever sold a home, you have to do the municipal lien certificates, town clerks on the planning. So these can be pretty volatile. So that's some of the fees here. Again, the cannabis host fees are essentially gone from that. So we're using a pretty good conservative number, even though it's spiked up to the 983 there. It looks to be a one-time, and I wouldn't adjust any higher. So if we go next, please. rentals, this is, so the old town hall, we have a tower in there that T-Mobile actually leases the space from us. We're probably, it's in a special town meeting, we should be putting in out a request for the town to authorize us to lease that for 30 years again. It's been sort of a 10-year at a time. The old town hall, that's where WCTV is, leases from us, and then the Oak Grove School is a small lease to the town, and there's a pretty predictable income. Why you're seeing differences in the past, the Head Start program leased the Oak Grove School and paid that. Now they bought the East School from the town out of auction and are still in the Oak Grove School, but they'll be out soon once they finish that project. It's right by you. I mean, it looks awesome.
I was just gonna say, it looks great.
It
Yeah,
does.
so, I mean, that's one
Working
of
like
those.
crazy.
That's one of those win-wins. The town got some money back, historic buildings being completely rehabbed, and it's a great thing for the community as long as they keep on receiving funding. So,
That's federal money.
yeah. So, next slide, please. Licenses and permits, so liquor license, building permits, electrical, plumbing, wire, health permits. These are impacted by large projects and the economic environment, so you can almost see before with our new growth matching up where some of the jumps are on some of those fees as well. So again, those are like the fees for the 40Bs, the condos, each one of those. So anybody pulling any sort of building permit and such. So that's the fee-based system. So the 1.5 after 2 years, though slightly declined, we're looking at a good place to keep that going. There are potentially, as I said, a couple projects that if they're beginning now, they could come online from the revenue coming in FY26. But that's why I wouldn't go any higher than the 1.5. If they do come in and we've budgeted about here, we'll be more than fine. We'll probably have access. If they don't, I don't want to be in a lurch. So next slide, please. Fines and forfeits, those are like assessor fines. If you haven't, people that have the rentals, the large rental buildings are supposed to send forward their contracts because that's how you base their assessments on. So they're fined if they don't do it, and some parking fines. So we've had a little bit of decline, but looks like it's steadied out. So using 65,000 based off of the 24 actuals. Next slide, please. And then investment income. This is the one. Obviously, when rates, I mean, if you look at when you're going before, I mean, $18,000 in 1 year.
Wow.
That was when you were earning almost nothing. We're currently in our municipal money market accounts making 3.75%. We are limited in what we can put our regular funds in and our stabilization funds. You're not allowed to put it in Bitcoin, anything like that, So here's what I did. With the cuts that we've seen, I'm budging 75% of the FY24 high, which I think it's we haven't seen a couple of cuts. Given now the economic uncertainty, I think that they may keep them leveled out for a little bit. So I think Jerry's more my guy to tell me where we're headed on this.
I don't think anywhere for 6 months.
Yeah. So I think keeping in that range, we should be good. This, like I said, think about it. We were next to nothing on this revenue 4 years ago. This is offset. This is not forever. This is offset. We've been with our planning and sometimes luck, which it's better be better be lucky and good. We've had times where not everything is hit wrong at the time. We've also made some moves that have allowed us because we actually have money in the bank rather than expending everything. We have surpluses, which is how we develop this. So I'm comfortable at the 950, but knowing that most likely depending on the economic environment, will continue to decrease every fiscal year going forward. Next slide, please. Medicaid. So this is reimbursement for Medicaid eligible services provided to students. It is hard to predict. We have a company that actually goes and gets the puts in for the reimbursements and such, and it does fluctuate as the services are needed, as the kids or the eligibility kids that come into the district move out. This is one of the ones that has me concerned. Federal impacts could just cut that revenue right out, just depending on it. So using 75% roughly of the FY24 collections, because it looks like 23 was a trough year, 2024 will be a crest, and that's probably, when you look at it, sometimes it's when you collect on some of the billings, and it looks across over fiscal years. So you almost have 1 year with 3 collections, next year 5 collections, next year 3, next year 5, because they're quarterly. Next, please. Miscellaneous recurring is literally miscellaneous. Their fees, their check turnbacks, their there's some of the other setup. It's made up about 10 different smaller accounts, but this is just the way we've been trending on them. So 215,000, I think, is a fair just trend for it. Next, please. So this is all told. When you go through, this is what we budgeted in 25. We actually collected close to 10.5 in 24, right? So that the $935,000 increase mark, which is a little over $9 million, we're in a good place. I normally would not want to put an increase in like that for any given fiscal year, but that's we're sort of bridging a gap here, and this is why we do it. This is why we're conservative with our numbers, to be able to take advantage of certain situations. So does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Next page, please. Slide, please. All right, so these are the available funds we talked about to harbor service permit fees. That's actually paying for the new harbor master boat. Came in. It's gorgeous. That thing's going to be. That is fantastic. It is their, like we said, their working platform, their ambulance, their cruiser, their tow truck. It's everything. So that thing's great. I will tell you that because of the due diligence of the harbor master, going with a different company, another community purchased what is essentially a lesser boat, but it's the known one for the area. There was approximately, for a lesser boat, about 350,000 more than this. This was under 700,000 for this boat, which I know people are thinking yacht, but it's for all the needs, including the what we saw in Mattapoisett. It's got the fire suppressant system that can actually reach further. It's got a crane on it for hauling.
It's a workboat.
It is a workboat.
And it's a rescue vehicle.
Yeah, rescue boat, yeah.
Community Preservation Fund, that's paying for the debt right now. It's paying for the Little Harbor debt. So we're bringing it into the budget because you have to pay it no matter what. So it's why do a separate article? You bring it right in through the budget. Waterways improvement, that's the one we talked about, helping offset a little bit. Wetlands protection, the same. And the enterprise fund, indirect, direct, you're looking at a $100,000 increase, but we subsidized last year about 70,000. It's the estimates came in over 900 last year, and this year they're coming in about $980,000. So this is still below what we also, I was thinking about the other day, you can charge a payment in lieu of taxes. We don't charge back unemployment to them when we pay unemployment. We also, inspectional services, we don't charge the fees for, we've got that giant project over there. We're not charging any fees, anything like that. So on a $36 million project, that's several $100,000, believe it or not. So, I think it's well within range, so.
Derek, are you not charging them full expenses because they can't afford it, or because their expenses would be so high that they would have to charge their customers or their
Yeah.
sewer users more?
It's just a little bit of a subsidy, and that's some of the things I think about. So example, we don't charge back on the town clerk's office, even though they're now a separate elected body. You know, they have their own meetings. We've had one town meeting that was dedicated just to sewer. It's just, I look at it, there's probably something, I could charge back every penny and probably goose that up by over another 100,000 or something, but you go back and forth between, where if you're on septic, you know, you have certain costs. If you're on sewer, you have certain costs. Sewer are better than septic for the environment, but you kind of do the round and round.
So it is a
Okay.
way, it's sort of a way to some extent of septic customers subsidizing the sewer system
Yeah, you know, that's a
to a small degree.
right. You know, so it's but that's the sewer payers pay taxes as well.
Right,
So
right.
it's I don't want to. I don't look at it as a revenue, really. It's not really a revenue stream. I just want to pay back kind of what we're putting into it. And every now and again, there'll be some years where maybe I know for when we were doing the Swiss Beach stuff, I was probably 40-50% of my time was dedicated to that. You know, we only charge back 15%, and there's some times where that you're not going to be at even 15%, but there's other weeks it's going to be a hell of a lot more. So I just
Well,
kind
it's a way to avoid sort of tracking every little,
Right.
every minute, right?
you do an estimate. That's one of the DLS allows you to do an estimate for that for their health. What I did was took everybody that's in there at this moment, right? All employees, and what plan do they have? What dental plan and what sort of life insurance that the town has to cover on there, the small policy, and then that's what I'm utilizing for that estimate.
Oh, and then in the end, when you do your consolidated statement, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because you're combining the school with the enterprise with the
so
town.
I mean, for the audit, we charge back 25% to them because they're a major portion of the audit, as is, especially, they are, from procurement wise, one of our biggest departments. It's the town does a lot for it, but municipal maintenance does stuff, but we don't charge back anymore because sometimes we're using their stuff for if we have a catch basin needs cleaning or something. So try and just being an enterprise fund is sort of the accounting aspect of it, right? So you're trying to account for every single really cost, but also not trying to gouge, if you will. So all told, our new revenues are just under 2.9 million. And realistically, if you looked at this when you came up with the revenue, it's you're kind of bringing at the end of the day our surplus from FY25 that you have now from into this as well. So, that's
So free cash is not reflected there.
correct. We did not use anything from free cash or stabilization fund to supplement this budget.
And so the free cash remains available for capital
Correct.
expenditures or one-time expenses.
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of it's probably going towards a bridge over in Fearing Hill. So, next slide, please. So this is the summary when we come down. We've talked about this on the left. The recap sheet items are the tuition assessments on the right-hand side. That's what we pay for charter school and school choice sending, just over 4.7 million. Retired teachers' health insurance, that was our big jump in assessments this year, which does make sense. I know that Medicare, we had for our retirees, we had a big price increase. One of them was based on making the diabetes medication available to everybody at a set cost, which it's good, right? However, that cost it's It's not free. It's not that cost. The cost is borne somewhere else. And it's borne across the rates. So
And that's the retired teacher's health insurance, is that
that's just
Medicare
the
supplement?
correct. Yeah. So, and that's just the retired.
Right.
On there. And then that's the other state assessments like GATRA. So some of the RMV, the county, Plymouth County assessment to us. So they're just over $500,000. Overlay, that's where you set that aside because you have abatement applications for taxes every year. There's also, if you remember, we voted at town meeting to give back for some of the veterans. That comes out of that section. So it's basically an offset of our revenue when it comes down to it. Health and dental, we're just over 9 million. I'll go through that a little bit later. Retirement, that's Plymouth County Retirement, LIUNA, general insurance and workers' comp. Medicare, that's the 1.45% tax, the payroll tax employer pays. Life insurance is a small amount. Veterans benefits, you see, haven't increased that. That's why I think honestly they've hit to 100% because veterans benefits, it's about the 360 plus we pay into, we're part of the Cape operation, so we pay about 30,000 a year into there. So that's where the number works. Excluded debt, that's the elementary school. The rest of it's the debt principal, interest and short term. Again, we talked about the debt that's in that line. Little Harbor offset by community preservation. New patrol boat offset by the I believe by the fees collected by the harbor master. The new school, the middle school roof is in that. That's our biggest one that we have now. That's essentially the only thing that we're really borrowing in there. Realistically, our debt should be a lot closer to 2.4 million. That's not excluded debt. You want at least 3 to 5%. So, but you see again the debt served for the Little Harbor, and then Serped is the assessment we have for them. I'm hoping another 2.5% increase.
So gonna be.
So those are about a little over $20 million. School budget and then the transportation budget, they're going to have to revote it. That's the school budget. This is slightly higher than they've requested, about 4.16 instead of 3.75 with the funding. We'll be trying to work to get those numbers in there, and I'll need them to give me the variance between the school budget and school transportation, how much they want to put in each one. Upper Cape Cod Tech, small decrease this year. We'll go through about 12 less students there, about $149,000 less. So
And that's another thing that can fluctuate.
correct, yeah, and it's based on how many school kids from our school are accepted. So, and we'll go through sort of the history for a little bit. So, general government expenses, that's everything we do from police, municipal maintenance, health, treasurer collector, assessor, everything that's covered by the 17 million for salary and expenses. So we'll go into just a little more depth of some of the big players, not into each budget or anything, but into the bigger items now. Any questions at this point? Could I have next slide, please? So, and just tap one more, see if it comes. There we go. There's George. So this is sort of the one where does
Your favorite graph.
Yeah. So it kind of gives you an idea. With the new slide, it does a little more greens with the blues in there. But if anybody ever asks where does my money go, this is sort of how it's broken down. So again, majority is school, and then the benefits for school and town employees, public safety, and the state and county assessments. Probably, we're looking at the Upper Cape Cod Tech, and then general governments, there's a small portion of this, public works, debt service, health and human, and a tiny little bit is cultural and recreation. So
You should do it in pennies.
have them off to the side. Can I have the next slide, please? So medical, we joined the Mayflower Municipal Health Group before that, as you've heard the story, that was when we were upside down in in our health insurance trust fund, plus experiencing 11% increases. 5-year rate increase average for Mayflower has been 3.15%, so been doing well. We've seen more, just like nationally, and we've seen in the Commonwealth, the healthcare trend increasing. Their recommendation rates are going to be voted on the 13th, which is why I'm going to change. I have to be there for the morning of the 13th. I'll see you guys in the afternoon. Is a 7% increase, which is not great. But the one of the other big insurers, Maya, who we have for general liability but is doing health insurance, theirs was a 14.8% increase.
7%'s not bad.
Yeah, so this is good. It puts about they have surplus funding over $30 million. That puts about $4 million at risk to get to that funding. So realistically, if we were not with this group, you'd be looking at higher than that any which way it comes. So it is a big portion of our budget,
Money.
but it's been pretty manageable. So next slide, please. So pension retirement contribution, they're now expecting to be funded at 2031. You have to be funded by 2034. It was 2029 at one point. I thought they only moved it to 2030, but I'm using their what I saw on their website, so it could be just slightly off, but it looks like we should expect 8% annual increases, which are substantial.
And that would get us to fully funded?
Get us to fully funded by 2031, unless an economic depression.
Right.
So, I believe they still have their returns are averaging over 8.25% historically. So, but we can see the compounding nature of it coming up. But next slide, please. Workers' Comp 111F. This is our one good one. All right. So, the experience, the mod. So, two things. One, the amount of claims we have, plus with the training that we've been doing, plus the severity of the claims has helped reduce it. So we're in a good place right now. The 450,000 feels good with being able to utilize that. They had actually shown us doing a reduction. So I'm okay with using the $450,000 number.
Where are most of those claims? What department or type of work?
Well, there's two things. One, what we experienced a jump because it's based on payroll audit, right? So desk jockey, really low cost. Somebody that's a field work is a much higher cost. We also, there's separate ones that we do on top of it for police. One is called Offset 111F. That's when they go out injured on duty. Plus there's a separate, we do a McNamara if they're for, more serious injuries on duty, including death, which gives the maximum value for coverage on that. There's a lot, believe it or not, with the school, especially special ed. They're not severe, but there's a lot. But we've had clerical people break double bones just tripping on something. We've had a maintenance person that had a crushing injury. You have somebody that's can break their back. So it's these are, you're trying to, number one thing is safety and trying to teach precaution, because things will happen, but if you can help train, and just sometimes the slightest miscalculation is. Next, please. General insurance, we've been doing well on the claims. Our biggest claim was the library claim. One was the flooding, then the mold issue. So just about a 1% increase is what they're factoring, so we're doing really well on that. And what you see are these big jumps was insurance costs have climbed, but they had not revalued our properties in over 10 years. And as much as we tried to push them away and not not let them in, eventually they get in. So that's what we saw for a lot of the big jumps. It's now sort of leveled off. Next slide, please. Okay, Upper Cape Cod Tech. This is what we were talking about before. So this is over approximately the last 7 years. You can see there's the ebb and flow to it depending on the number of students. They really don't jump up. Outside of the different students, their budget doesn't increase that much. They do about 3%.
So is this a figure they've given you?
Yeah.
uh,
So,
for
and
this year?
I left my key insights on this one, so you have not so key insights on this slide, so I apologize. Yeah, this was the number after speaking with the superintendent. I believe that's not I don't know if they've officially voted that yet, but that's what was brought forward, so he's great with it, gives me the information and starts letting me know ahead of time, hey, we've got 10 more kids. So what that tells me is I will take what the enrollment is, divide that by last year's assessment, and then multiply that by whatever that is by 10, add that to last year's assessment, then increase it by 3% overall. So that's usually what I'm coming up with it. But the good thing about having the budget process a little bit later is we actually have the number.
Yes, that was the idea.
So, but you can see, technically, I was trying to figure this out. The trend line is static, right? I mean, we've got some peaks and valleys, but we're not. I mean, we're less than we were in FY20. Yes, we're higher than FY23, but that's where there was some big drops in enrollment. So, this is outside of flawed key insights. It's a good slide to see. So.
You'll fix that.
Yes, I can remember to fix it. Next slide, please. State assessments. These are one of the tough ones. So they continue to rise, and the largest increase was the retired teachers' health insurance was $429,000, went from 1.6 million to over 2 million. So that was a very big jump. This was the first year we didn't see an increase for charter school or school choice to sending tuition. Now that might change given, as it goes through the legislature, but so if you remember, right, we already had negative state aid. That means with these assessments on top of it, it's even worse for our net state aid. So,
But those are not final figures yet.
correct, they're not final figures. So it used to be, under Patrick, if you went by his budget, you were pretty spot on. Under Baker, he was usually a little more generous, so the legislature cut back on what was given, and I have no sense of where we are with this process as to who's going to prevail. If we go to the next slide, please. All right, so I apologize, right? This one stinks, but let's try to get all the information on there. We can break it up in the future, but it's just telling you, showing you what we're looking at. So we're actually, it's not the decrease, but at negative $300,000 increase. Overall, plus the negative state aid, so our true state aid was completely negative for this year. So this needs some massaging, obviously, but that tells you every single state assessment that we have. So county tax, retired teachers, some of them are minuscule, some of them are pretty darn big. So next slide, please. We are done. So that's, again, we're not going into each and every of the budget line. I just wanted to give you sort of some of the information on it.
And I assume you will provide us with that slide deck to.
Yeah, I want to finish up them. I didn't do the, for next meeting, I'm gonna do the average single family tax bill again. We're
Okay.
still,
I think
we're
that's
still,
helpful.
still lower, and add a few of those things, and then I'd like to get on the town's website for the residents to see.
Good.
So,
I'm sure the select board would like to see it too.
yes, should be putting up at the next one for them, so. So, any questions, anything seem out of line, or?
Just looking at all the different departments, most of them look like just wages,
Yeah.
contractual raises.
Most of them on there. Municipal maintenance, what happened is we do have some, we've been actually hiring people and filling the
I had that marked
positions.
there, except for municipal maintenance, I said, do we have new people there?
We've been getting some truck drivers, we've been getting some heavy equipment operators. They were positions that we already had in there. But the funding and the way and bringing some of the people in, it's bringing them in at a higher level than what we were looking at. So, but we're getting some good talented folks in, and that is, we have the equipment, so they are what, once we get them in there, we've seen what municipal maintenance can do under Mr. Menard's leadership, so.
And this is just me being nosy. Do we have many employees on either in a union or a personal contract?
The only ones that are not in a union, there's some part-time that don't qualify,
Yeah,
are myself, the assistant town administrator, and the chief of police.
You got personal contracts.
Yes, we have
Yeah,
personal.
that's what I say, personal contract or a union. So most employees are covered.
Yeah.
Some,
Everybody.
We have,
yeah, I know the part-timers, I wasn't,
Yeah.
just a full-time.
so the 8 of the union contracts will be up on July 1, so we're negotiating with them, which is it takes some time, so
What are they asking for this time?
stuff.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Have you tried to figure that in? Have you put,
Yeah, I wouldn't, so what we do is two things. One, I've figured in somewhat of an increase, and if you remember, we always put some money aside
Right, yeah.
into the, it's how people, all right, factor in 2% increase for everybody, and there's, you get, the moans and stuff, but, so.
so all the contracts we see on the warrant, those will probably not be settled or maybe.
Some will be.
Some will
A
be
big
settled.
maybe.
If they're all settled, I'm gonna come with the magician's hat on. So but those are, I'm looking at given what's happened surrounding communities and some of them, one of the big ones is the Cape is starting to really overpay for, especially, on the lower Cape. So, or upper Cape, excuse me, and mid Cape, so it's interesting,
That's
but
our competition.
yeah, it is, but it's not when it comes down to it, because that's based off of, like, any of us that have worked, you have when you go to different regions, you get a surcharge or an extra bump in your pay. If you're in the DC area, it's going to be much more than if you're down in Tallahassee or something like that. So
Housing on the Cape is substantially higher cost right off the bat,
so
and food.
yeah, I think right now the average single family assessed value in most of them about 400,000 more than Wareham.
Ooh,
So
Easy.
that's a lot. Because Wareham's not cheap.
no, ours is coming in just under $400,000. So
Other questions or comments?
I have a question, I brought this up, and I didn't go looking for this problem, it came to me about the golf course. I don't know if you wanna talk about that now, you want me to come in and talk to you about it, or it's not on the agenda, I don't know how much.
It's actually probably more part of the first half of the year that we talked about earlier, but I think it's legitimate for this process.
Yeah, I've had about 3 things since Christmas get dropped in my lap, and 2 of them I said, listen, I don't wanna get involved in any of this. But I don't go around town about things, but anyways.
Yeah.
Do they have a concessionaire there? This person ran into Mama Mary's car with a thing on the side, and she didn't sound like a happy camper going by this person. Are they,
I would suggest we don't speak about that right now.
Is that
Well,
more of a
do they have a
personal matter?
concessionaire? That's the question.
They have their own company. The agreement with with Sterling Golf is that they provide food.
Yes.
But
Mary
we
is
don't dictate
technically an
how.
employee.
We don't tell them who, we don't tell
Okay.
them what, we don't
It's not
tell them
us.
anything on that.
Is there still a kitchen problems there and all that stuff?
To upgrade the kitchen is looking at approximately $50,000, which would not be feasible funding wise.
Is there money in the revolving account?
Yeah, but there is. I think we're probably looking at 50, 60,000 or so. But we have golf carts coming up that need to be replaced, so that's what we utilize them. We own the golf carts, we own the equipment. Whoever we're working with, we didn't want them to own everything because if they go,
They
right,
go- they go.
you're in trouble. So
Oh, yeah, because I was, actually, I went and printed out some of the minutes. I saw you authorized for 18,000 to 22,000 for a
Ventilation system.
triplex. You can barely buy the plex for the $20,000. They're going to obviously be. Are you purchasing that, or are they?
we purchased it through, so we're not paying taxes on it, but they find us the used equipment and such. So we are not going to be brand new equipment golf course.
Yeah, I mean that's a $50,000 to $60,000 piece of equipment. I mean that's. I'm saying who? I was just curious because you can buy them off lease and stuff. I mean I bought like 3 of those off lease, and you can get good ones. Make no mistake about it.
We're looking at a cart replacement program where you lease some to lease to own, and then purchase some outright. So you're not, because remember, we only get money from the revenues from that. So
Yeah, I was going to just mention. I know leasing because I leased carts, and they also threw in utility carts.
Yeah.
It's like a, a little box in the back to do
Right,
all that work, and I leased, and I can. It worked out because they came in and serviced them every week too.
right.
There is an upside to that. Just something to look at if you were interested in that. I mean, that's a definite cost, yearly cost. But carts pay for themselves.
Right, yeah, we looked at, right now I'm looking at purchasing them because, again, my fear is what, if you start replacing them in 5 years, what do I have? So I need to make sure that, I know what I can pay for, I know what I can purchase. And at the end of that, if that squeezes, I want to still have equipment to offer for the golfers, because if that squeezes down, it's a lease and a lease ends. I have nothing.
You're in a bind.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I know I was on a 3-year lease, so every 3 years I got new ones.
Right, yeah.
It really worked out well because they break.
Yes.
Even brand new ones break,
Uh,
and they come in and fix them.
I don't have enough years, even with the 2 in of revenue to actually predict where we're going to be. So I'm going to try and do what I know we can do for the next sort of 5 years. And the lease when it isn't lease to own scares me, because I don't want to put us in a position again, a bind where we don't have the equipment at the end.
Okay. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that can beat to death here, but it's
Maybe that should wait.
yeah. Just I can go back and tell them something.
All right, other questions on the budget?
No.
Thank you very much. This is quite thorough and helpful. And I think the approach that you take seems to have been working so far for us. So
Thank you.
hopefully it
I
will
appreciate
continue to
that.
do so,
Yeah.
in spite of uncertain times.
Yeah, no, I hate to give you a pat in the back, but compared to my old town, you do an absolutely fantastic job. And I said this, half the battle is trust. And I trust you and the schools, you know, and I didn't come from that environment, and it was a clash over everything.
Yeah, no, that's,
And trust is a big part of it, and I feel I have that. I can't speak for anybody else, but
appreciate that. It's a hard one, easily lost. So,
Right,
you
that's
know.
right. Andrea, do you have thoughts or questions?
No, I'm good. It's been very informative.
All right,
Thank you.
with that, we will set you free.
oh, you can stay if you
You
want.
you are always welcome. It is getting late. The next item on the agenda is liaison reports. Does anybody have anything they want to share for their liaison department?
We have, capital planning will have two warrant articles. One is a bylaw article, the other one is a charter article. They're basically the charter and the bylaw articles go back to 1977 when they were established. There's been changes requested, also dollar amounts of what's considered a capital item. Jerry worked on it before, we just picked up from his work. So one of the articles is to resubmit what is actually a capital item, what isn't. And the other one is basically at the request of the town administrator, town treasurer, and also the town accountant, where they're required to come to the meetings because two of them are voting members and one is not. The town accountant was not even on the charter listing at all, which it should have been. As a ex officio non-voting, I'm taking care of that. And also under Mass General Law, Capital Planning Committee is supposed to not just do a 5-year rolling update, we're also supposed to be involved with the, how do you pay for these items with the town accountant, with the town treasurer and the town administrator. That hasn't happened in 15 years. So that's also being put in there. So it's really a cleanup. It's very straightforward. We're just trying to make it better overall.
Okay, and we will put you on the agenda to do a more complete presentation of that, but that's a very helpful
It's very straightforward.
preview. Thank you. But basically, you're saying you're updating
Bring
the
it up to the
provisions.
21st
Yeah,
century.
got it. Okay. All
Yeah,
right,
not just the schools, all the schools, they get a financial update monthly,
right.
and the schools are doing well.
Okay.
You know, staying within their budgets, you know, I know Derek talked to 50% and they do all those, but looking at their warrants, I just kind of shake my head how much they spend on charter schools and like that,
Yeah,
you know.
no choice.
They have no choice, I understand that,
That's
I'm not disputing any of that, the kids need it, I'm not, it's just, it is a lot of money.
That's right.
It is a lot of money.
It's a
People
very
need it.
complex budget.
It really is. I mean, there's a lot to their budget, and most of it's mandated.
Right.
Most of it's mandated.
Anybody else want to report in? All right. Well, with that, we'll get to the final item on the agenda, which is upcoming Finance Committee vacancies. As it stands right now, Andrea, Brianna, and Jody are all up at the end of June. My understanding is that they're all eligible to reapply. Not sure. I know Jody has decided he will reapply. I have not heard definitively from either Brianna or Andrea. I'm sure you will let us know that soon. If you are reapplying, you need to go ahead and get that paperwork in so that the appointing authority can consider that. I will also announce right now, and anyone who attended or watched the select board meeting last night probably won't be surprised to hear this. I am planning to step down at after Springtown meeting from the committee. That's 2 months away, but for personal reasons, both Sherry and I are stepping aside from our town positions. Wanted to give everyone plenty of time to know that, to look for a replacement. I have spent quite a lot of time putting together information for my successor. I'm actually doing succession planning and some written information that I didn't have starting out, including pretty thorough timeline of what we do on the committee and when. I've got a lot of files, Word files, templates, and so forth for pretty much everything we do. So hopefully replacing me will not be hard.
One point, where we have members that are assigned to other committees, it's a yearly appointment. So
Yes.
for me, for capital planning, community events, even though I'm just ex officio non-voting, you'll have to put that on the agenda to go through, and so it goes to the selectman's office to get approved.
Right, but that's usually done at the reorganization point.
It can be done
July.
beforehand, because if you do it in July, that means that particular committee can meet.
Potentially,
So
yes.
it's easy to do it before and just automatically lops over.
So those are all things to, that will be, have on, sort of on agendas coming up.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and as I told Sherry when she came in, she'd be surely missed, as you will be. She's done a lot, so much for the town, and as you also, you've done a great job with this committee,
Thank you.
and I certainly appreciated it.
It has been an honor to serve on this committee and work with this group of people.
Having said that, motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Roll call, Jerry? Jody?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Heidi? Andrea?
Yes, although I did just want to say one thing. I think it's fine that we're adjourned, but April 2nd, I have a work commitment that I have to be at that night, so I'm not going to be at that meeting.
Okay. And I also, I vote in favor of adjourning, and we are adjourned at 7:52.
55.
He's close enough.
That's wrong.
Let's run.
It's always wrong.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So Norma, how long you been on